Start recording. All right. So welcome back to the second semester, folks. Thank you, Jordan, for putting that in. We are starting pretty much fresh with a new unit to start off the second half of the year. Mr. Ficker is going to go through the assignments with you here momentarily to kind of set you all up. And I'm going to be going over kind of what to expect today in our government in relation to the unit that we're starting. And the unit we're starting is the executive branch. We'll be going through a series of different assignments. The only change for the second semester is obviously the change to the Wednesday schedule, that now you are obviously required to attend virtual meetings on Zoom. So we are asking that you, obviously take the time, and this is mostly, since I'm recording this for the people that are watching this on the recording, try to make time to make sure that you attend these meetings on Wednesday. So please, I know many of you work. I know some of you have appointments and everything, but Wednesdays are the only days that we're asking moving forward that you take some time to at least attend class. I have some people on here from my fourth bell who, had a third bell free or were not required to go. Thank you for letting us know about Mr. Clark's class. That's totally fine. You guys can kind of come in whenever, because Ficker and I both have third and fourth bell, and we run the same link for both third and fourth bell. So you can jump in whenever you have free times. So thank you, Ms. Williams, for letting us know. Bottom line is, folks, we just kind of would really like you to jump in. Now, I have a fifth bell and Ficker has a sixth bell. So if the morning is really a problem, we are going through the same material in all those sections. You can email us and say, hey, is there any way I can get the link for your sixth bell class? Or is there any way I can jump into your fifth bell Zoom call? That's totally fine. The whole point is to get the material. So you have multiple opportunities to log in. You can certainly use the fourth bell time slot as well, because we're going over the same things multiple times. And like I said, we will still post the video to the Zoom if you can't make it per week, but we will ask that you email us and say, hey, I was not able to make the meeting today because of a doctor's appointment, or my work scheduled me early on Wednesday and there's nothing I can do. My apologies. This helps us to excuse those absences so that, it helps with attendance, but this will impact whether or not you have to take a final exam. Attendance at these meetings will be beneficial down the line here. So please make sure that if you are going to miss, that you kind of let us know via email. All right, Mr. Ficker, if you want to go ahead and take over here and go over the assignments for the week. You're muted, Mr. Ficker.
Sorry. Do you have to, if I want to share my screen, do you have to make me the head honcho of the meeting? Let's find out. Can you all see my screen? Hey, it worked. Okay, so the work this week, and we are changing the due date. So at all first semester, it was after it was posted, it was due the following Friday. So we're making things due on Wednesday, so we can do things with you guys in the Zoom meeting. So basically, your assignments will be due. We'll assign them on Wednesday and give you a week to do them. They're due the following Wednesday. So our Zoom meetings, we can always have things that we can do that reflect that content that you guys, we want you to learn, okay? So for this week, Ms. J has put up a checklist of things that you need to do. So that's always up here. We've got our Zoom class. Oops. This week, let me go back here. Like Mr. V said, we're going to be doing the executive branch. So we've got a website that we put together of the content that we need you to know for the executive branch. So you guys have done this first semester already. So each page is one of the sections, and you've got some questions that follow each section that we want you to go through and answer as you go through the website. Okay. All right. The next assignment is Ms. J has put together a crossword on roles of the president. And let's see. So this uses the terms that you guys need to know. And Ms. J, when they turn this, how did you want them to turn this in?
Yeah, so I put a Google Doc so they can screenshot their completed crossword puzzle, put it on the Google Doc, and then I asked them like an extended response question for them to write a couple sentences about.
Okay, so make sure you do that extended response question because some of you forget to do that sometimes. And then Ms. J has put together a review video of it's there. And of course, as you go through that, make sure that you fill out the chart saying what you know and what you need help with. And I don't know if some of you come back to this document, but when you put things like what you need help with, we'll put links to YouTube videos that'll help you. We put, Quizlet links and so forth that'll help you. So, and by the way, make sure that you're specific enough so that we know that you watched the video. Okay, so some of you put like just a couple words up here. We need more than that from you. So we need to know exactly, what you learned and what you need help with. Okay, you guys have any questions? Throw them in the chat room. I'll be looking at the chat room. And Mr. V, it is all yours.
Okay, folks, today is Inauguration Day, and there's going to be some feelings of either sadness or hope or whatever else, as with any transition of the executive branch. Now, obviously, if you're a Trump supporter, it was a little rough this morning seeing him leave the White House. For those of you that don't know, he has left the White House. He has taken Marine One out to Andrews Air Force Base. He has given his kind of little speech to his supporters and to his staff, kind of outlining, it's the typical stuff. I've been very proud to be your president, proud to serve. It's been an honor. It's been an honor to serve with these people. He, of course, did a very Trumpian thing. He had his little notes and he just discarded them and talked off the top of his head. So he kind of left the way he came in, unprepared notes. And I'm sure he forgot a few people to thank a few people. That'll come out in the next few days where people were upset that they didn't, or they'll, look at his words and say, oh, he didn't mention Biden by name, or he didn't mention Pence by name, or whatever else. But be that as it may, he is now boarded Air Force One, and for the last time, it will be called Air Force One. Air Force One is the jet. Any jet that the president steps on is codenamed Air Force One. So once he lands in Florida and steps off that plane, he is no longer president of the United States. It will never be called Air Force One again, at least when he's on it.
Mr. V, can I point out how rare it is for a president not to win a second term?
Go right ahead.
And I'm the oldest guy here. I'm in my 50s. I've only seen that in my lifetime. It's only happened 3 times. So it happens about every 20 years or so that we have a president that does not win re-election. The last time it happened was before this was 1992.
Yep. Yeah, and in my lifetime it was Carter. Carter and back in 1980 lost re-election to Reagan. And then 92 was Bush lost re-election to Clinton. That's the last time. So in your lifetime, youngins, you've never seen this. This is the first time that you have ever seen a one-term president. And that's not always how it's been. It's modern day. It's been normal to have 2-term presidents, but that is not the way. If you look historically, it's actually quite rare to have this kind of streak of 2-term presidents, because Clinton, Bush the second, Bush 43, and Obama, both, all 3 of them had 2-term presidencies. So yes, this is a rarity, at least for your age group and for Miss J for that matter. Congratulations, Miss J. You're also quite young as well.
Thank you.
So again, this is very rare, and this is a transfer of power that's very contentious. Now, Trump leaving early is, of course, outside the normal, but it's not like it's never been done before. There have been 3 times in American history where a president did not attend the inauguration of their successor. It happened to the Adams family. John Adams and John Quincy Adams both left early. John Adams did not want to stick around in what was called eventually the Revolution of 1800. He did not want to stick around for Thomas Jefferson's swearing in, so he left the night before. John Quincy Adams left the night before because he was worried, and he was actually quite right in this, about Andrew Jackson's supporters descending upon Washington, D.C. Andrew Jackson's supporters actually stormed the White House and like tore the place apart in celebration. It's kind of like when a championship happens in a city and the people go out and burn cars and overturn, overturn cars and burn them and riot in the streets out of celebration that, oh man, our team won. That's kind of what happened in the White House when Jackson took over. It was called the Rule of King Mob. So John Quincy Adams was probably correct in leaving early to avoid all that mess. But the last time we've ever had this was Andrew Johnson, who was the 17th president. He had taken over after Lincoln's assassination. He had the distinction of being the first president ever impeached. And remember, impeached just means that they were formally brought up on charges. We have never had a president thrown out of office because of a charge. Nobody's ever been convicted. But Johnson was the closest. He survived by only one vote to maintain his office. Now, when he leaves, he did not run for re-election. He was not renominated. He left because U.S. Grant had won the presidency, and Grant did not want to share a carriage with Johnson over to the Capitol building, because traditionally what normally would happen is the sitting president invites the president-elect into the White House to meet before going to the Capitol building. This happened 4 years ago when Barack Obama invited the Trumps over to the White House before Trump took the oath of office. And then they're supposed to kind of travel together, or at least in a caravan of sorts, over to the Capitol building for the swearing-in ceremony. That obviously is not happening this morning. Now, Johnson didn't go to the Capitol because Grant didn't want to share the same carriage. Johnson took offense to that, and so he just left. So in reality, Grant just kind of disrespected Johnson, so Johnson just said, well, if you're going to treat me like that, I'm out. This is not quite the same thing. It's not like Biden said, I don't want you there, even though, let's be honest, if you sat down Joe Biden and said, hey, do you want Donald Trump at your inaugural? He'd probably say no. If you were being very truthful, because this was a very contentious election. And of course, January 6th events at the Capitol building did nothing to help that. So needless to say, Trump is now out. He is left. He is on Air Force One going to Florida. At noon today will be the official transfer of power. Joe Biden will take the oath of office. Currently, he's at, and this is tradition, he's currently at a church ceremony in Washington, D.C., which is kind of like a blessing of the new president as they take office. This is a traditional thing that they do in the inaugural festivities. It's one of the few traditional things that actually survived COVID, because Joe Biden will take the oath of office at noon. He will give his inaugural address in front of a very small crowd, and it's not even a crowd of really well-wishers. It's people who are in the government. It's, members of Congress. It's going to be people that have been nominated to his cabinet, maybe his close personal friends and his family. And there'll be some supporters, but it's not going to be the throngs that normally show up for the inaugural. Now, this is partly due to COVID and the fact that they don't want to have a big gathering and a super spreader event, but it's also from the standpoint that they had to lock down the Capitol. There are probably going to be more National Guard troops than there are actually people at the ceremony today. So it'll be a little different. The Biden campaign basically bought a lot of small little American flags and plastered them all over the mall area, which is the grass area between the Capitol building and the monuments. They purposely did that to kind of represent, hey, this is where people would stand if we had a normal, inaugural. But that's kind of their solution, is to at least decorate the area that is going to be empty space. Of course, I'm sure Donald Trump will say things like, oh, see, he can't even get a crowd at his own inaugural, because that's what Donald Trump does. But in the end, it's out of an abundance of caution because of the disease and because of some of the events that happened on January 6th and the worry that might occur again. Talking to my friends who live in DC, it's severely locked down. Like, the only way you're getting in there is if you are meant to be there. So if you were to go out for a walk around the Lincoln Memorial area today's not the day. You're going to be ushered away from it because of security concerns and because of COVID quarantine measures. So What they will skip, they will not have the inaugural parade. They typically have the walk of the new president from the Capitol building down to the White House. That will not take place. Instead, Biden will be driven down to the White House to walk in. And they will not have, typically they have inaugural balls, these, basically nerd proms, if you will, of government officials and other people. They will not have that. That will not occur. They made a big deal about the fact that they did get Justin Timberlake to perform. And so if you're a big JT fan, he'll be there and performing for the people that are there. But it's going to be a very dialed down inaugural today. Bottom line is Joe Biden at noon today will be sworn in as the 46th president of the United States. For those of you wondering, well, why did they impeach Donald Trump? Well, impeachment doesn't mean that he is convicted, of course. They did vote to impeach last week, which means they formally brought him up on charges, and they brought him up on a charge of insurrection, that he incited an insurrection, that his words caused what happened at the Capitol building to happen. And as more information comes out, it's becoming very, very controversial as to, do we link him to that? And if so, how does it link directly? They're certainly looking right now, and this is probably the bigger story, the more concerning story, is that they're looking at current members of the House and the Senate who may have given tours to some of the people that eventually raided the White House on January 6th, that on January 4th and 5th, they were giving private tours to some of the people that eventually participated in that raid. The FBI is looking into that. And, it's pretty serious when a member of Congress accuses other members of Congress of aiding and abetting people that are going to commit treason. And that's what they committed by raiding the Capitol building. They did commit treason against the United States government. They were threatening people inside the government. So it's somewhat comical in some of these people who have been arrested and some of their reactions to this. There's the guy with the buffalo head was, oh, they don't serve organic food in prison. Really? You didn't know that they don't serve prisoners organic food? It's kind of odd, some of the stories that are coming out about this. But bottom line is, as much as we can laugh at it, and we probably should laugh a little bit just to keep our sanity, there are some serious allegations going on. This is not typical to see members of Congress accusing each other of aiding and abetting criminals. So this should be interesting moving forward. The Senate will have a trial eventually of Mr. Trump, and they will come to a decision as to whether or not he is held liable. But it's been interesting to hear some of the Republican people in the Senate saying, these are pretty accurate charges against him. So we could see the first president ever convicted of an impeachment, which, if that happens, of course, Trump's already left office, but why do they want to do that? It limits the former president now, immensely. That means that Donald Trump no longer gets Secret Service protection. He doesn't get his pension. And the big one is he can never run for elected office again. He is banned from that. So he would not be able to run for the presidency in 2024, which is kind of what the big push is. And so a lot of Republicans are waking up today kind of wondering, all right, now that we're transitioning to Biden, do we want to space ourselves away from Trump and some of his supporters, or do we want to kind of salvage this because it is a movement that has inspired a lot of people to vote? So that'll be kind of moving forward what both parties do. The Democrats have to decide, do we unite under Joe Biden's message and, make him the standard bearer moving forward? Do we find other leaders that kind of maybe will be the core of us in the future? And the Republicans are doing the same thing. Do we kind of gather around Trump still, or do we find the next leadership, if you will, and kind of promote somebody that will challenge Biden in 2024. So again, for those of you saying, oh my God, it's so many politics, this is what they do. This is what, politics is all about, unfortunately. So it starts all over again. That's kind of what happens. So bottom line is, if you tune in today at noon, that'll be what is happening in your government today. You'll be seeing the oath of office administered. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ficker, it is going to be Justice Roberts that is administering the oath of office today, correct?
Yeah, it's always, unless Chief Justice can't be there, which he will be there, it's always Chief Justice that gives the oath of office. And the question is always, what happens if the president doesn't take the oath of office? Is he still president?
The answer to that is yes. theoretically, it's just a ceremony. Weirdly enough, we're learning quite a bit in the last couple of weeks of what is just ceremony and what is actually necessary. So, for example, we learned, hopefully, most people learned that when the Capitol was stormed on the 6th, that was just a ceremonial vote. It doesn't actually have to take place. The Senate and House do not have to okay the Electoral College for it to just become permanent. They literally can just say, yep, looks good, and move on. But that whole spectacle that we had after the Capitol was raided, that night they certified the election returns. And I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about, is that necessary? And 3 constitutional scholars went, no, it's just, it's, you can still crown Miss America without having all the evening gown competitions and all the other stuff. You can still do all the things of government without having this huge to do, if you will, and they kind of said this was kind of extra constitutional when the Republicans like Hawley and Cruz said, oh, well, we're going to object to it. Yeah, you can, but it's really, it'd have to be extreme circumstances for this to alter anything. Again, we're kind of finding out, and there were these same constitutional scholars were asked about the oath of office, and they said the oath is really just for the American people to feel better about it. Like, oh, yep, he's now currently president. But in reality, according to the timetable, at noon today, Joe Biden becomes president, regardless of if he says anything or not. And the other thing is, too, we do a lot of this on precedent. Joe Biden will swear in by placing his left hand on a Bible. He does not have to place his hand on a Bible. He can put it on whatever he wants. He doesn't have to at all. This was only George Washington did it, so therefore everybody else did it. So if you ever become president of the United States and say, I want, I've actually converted to Islam and I want to swear in on the Quran, you have every right to do that. If you want to swear in on the Torah because you're Jewish, you have every right to do that. If you are a huge fan of Dr. Seuss and want to swear in on the collective works of Dr. Seuss because you feel like, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish really taught you about how to be an American, you have every right to do that. That is totally fine. Now, some people may take offense to it that you wouldn't use a Bible, but there's nothing in the Constitution says that you have to. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that you have to really use anything. You just stand there and put your right hand up, and technically you don't even have to put your right hand up. You can just and literally nothing in the Constitution says you have to say the oath of office. You can just listen to the Supreme Court Chief Justice say it, and just out of nowhere say, well, yeah, I agree to all that. And it's still the same thing. It would still qualify. Okay. Jordan, not really appropriate on many different levels. 1, Hitler is dead. 2, 2025 is not an election year. And 3, Hitler, even if he was alive, wouldn't be American. So there's a constitutional thing you'll learn. You have to be a natural born U.S. citizen to be president of the United States. So just throwing it out there. The next election cycle is 2024, to be accurate. Okay. All right. So that's kind of what's happening in your government today. You will have a 46th president at noon today, regardless of what happens. Any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Ficker, do you have somebody named Parker? Do you know who this person is that came in a little late? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so
I got
sorry,
everybody.
Parker. We want to make sure that you got in for attendance here.
He's good.
Okay, Ms. J, do you have anything to add? Anything you want to convey to the masses here?
I do not. I think everything was covered.
I think it's amazing how we put all of this into, one big ceremony. We're switching a president. And I'm not saying it's not a big deal, because it is a big deal. But what you guys will learn is that the executive branch mainly, that carries out the laws, almost everybody except for the president is elected in the executive branch. And when the president appoints somebody to the cabinet, assistant cabinet post, that's going to happen in the next couple of months. All of Biden's cabinet people will be approved by the Senate, but there's 1 million people or so that work for the executive branch under the president, and they're going to keep their jobs. So even though we say, You know, the government is changing from Republican to Democratic hands. Honestly, most of the people, you all may know somebody that works for the federal government. I have a brother-in-law that works for the Environmental Protection Agency, and he's been working since Clinton was president. So doesn't matter to him who's president. He still has his job. He still has his day-to-day responsibilities. So even though this is a big change for most people in the government that work for the government, it's not. Your mail will still be delivered today, regardless of who's president, you know? Just wanted to point that out.
The mail might get a little quicker, but that's another issue entirely. So yeah, the direction of the government, and Mr. Ficker is correct. It's really just more of a direction, you know, the person at the top and what they kind of put as priority. So, all right, folks, if you have any questions, you can stay behind. Otherwise, we're going to release you a little early. Just a reminder again, you have assignments to start off the second semester. Those are due by next Tuesday. So please do not kind of put them off or anything, because we will use those assignments to inform our discussions moving forward. So do not put those off. We will start to have to take late grades on work that is turned in exceptionally late. Some of you really flirted with disaster, and some of you actually did achieve disaster for the first semester. If that's you, then please, 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 let's get a little motivated for the second semester start here. Other than that, you are free to go to your now fourth bell class, which will start for you at 10:25.